Thank you so much for such a beautiful song. Lakshmi will take over now.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. P.M. Nair, a highly accomplished police officer who served for 35 years in various capacities, including the Director General of the National Disaster Response Force, Director General of Civil Defence, Government of India. During his tenure in the CBI, he handled high-profile cases such as the Rajiv Gandhi assassination, Bofors scandal, ISRO espionage case, and Purulina arms drop. If you see the movie Rocketry by Madhavan, you can see Dr. P.M. Nair coming in from CBI and saving Nambi Narayan and others from jail. Dr. Nair is a strong advocate for anti-human trafficking and child's rights, currently working against child trafficking. We kindly request Dr. P.M. Nair to address the audience.
Thank you, Madam Lakshmi. I was supposed to speak later after the book. Sorry? It's an honor. I'm supposed to receive the book from here. It's an honor to going to receive the book from His Excellency Shri R.N.rava, with whom I and my wife here, Bhamati, had the delight of working for years together, long years, on national security matters. I'll focus my point on the draft I could see on the Book of Books. This Book of Books is indeed a rare book with amalgamation of manuscripts, books, artifacts, holographs, pictures, commentaries, and rare quotes. The treasure from Thamaravelil Givargis Mathai Rare Book Museum have been summarily captured and presented by the authors James Matthew. Wonderful work, sir. Wonderful work. And Kent Becquerel, and the chief editor Robert Pavlik. Hard work indeed. And Adi Sakrit Publishing have done a commendable job, ma'am. Thank you so much. The mentoring by Mr. Krishnan had indeed done the magic, as always. The book is a veritable treatise on the philosophy and culture from different corners of the globe, emanating from eminent authors, philosophers, movers, and shakers of different era, covering almost 2 centuries. The starting chapter on Henry David Thoreau gives the reader immense ecstasy of not only the theory but also the philosophy of thought process. When Thoreau concluded that, I quote, that government is the best which governs the least, unquote, I find a parallel in what our Prime Minister Modi has been advocating and practicing. The book brings out unpublished papers and documents of great historical and political value. Reading through the chapter on Emerson, one is fascinated with the impact on Hindu philosophy, especially Katha Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita on him. Similarly, Abraham Lincoln's story, Note to the Secretary of Treasury, Justice Davis gives the reader an orientation as to what goes in the corridors of power, many of them unspoken and unwritten. The book reveals them. The note by President Lincoln to his Senator Jacob Collamer on page 147 speaks volumes about the humility in public discourse. Humility in public discourse. It's rightly stated that Lincoln, who abolished slavery, was shot dead, but Lincoln's proclamation remains as immortal as Lincoln. And we do have a parallel in Indian history with our own Mahatma and several leaders now. It is heartening to note that the intricate understanding on the analysis of Veda and Hindu philosophy emerges from the chapters on Western authors. When a great philosopher like Thoreau says, I quote, in comparison with the philosophers of the East, we may say that modern Europe is yet to give birth to none. Amazing. Besides the vast and cosmogonal philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, even our Shakespeare seems sometimes youthfully green and politically merely, unquote. Moving from St. Augustine to Omar Khayyam to Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan, we see discourses of high order, promoting and facilitating positive thoughts and actions. The way the Indian literature of yesteryears has impacted even the West is clear from the translated books of Shakuntala and various books authored by Kalidasa. The philosophy of Count de Leo Tolstoy, life and mission of Annie Besant, Swami Vivekananda, Rabindranath Tagore, and Thorudath are indeed fascinating episodes. The detailed narration of modern India's gift with quotes from Tagore and Mahatma, the Jnana Yogi and Karma Yogi, respectively helps the reader to explore into many things which are not known or published before. Romain Rolland, in his book on Mahatma Gandhi, says, the great religious aspirations of the Orient are ruled by a rhythm. And the soul of Oriental peoples has been moved in its deepest fibers, and its vibrations are felt the whole world over. Amazing. The rare photo collage of Mahatma Gandhi gives an exciting and delightful feeling, virtually leading the reader to feel and be part of history. The book concludes with amazing literature on solitaires from different periods, plays, walks of life and languages of several personalities like Helen Keller, Scott Georgis Mar Osaricios, Sugata Kumari, Vijay Raghavan, Valsamma Matthew, Glory Thomas, G. Kamalamma, Joseph E. Thomas, Paulos Mark Gregorius, and concluding with the living legend Adur Gopalakrishnan. Every page and every picture in this book of books penetrates deeply into the mind and heart of the reader, enthralling the reader with fabulous historiography and culturography, coupled with spirituality arising from the magnificent works of eminent philosophers and thinkers that this world has produced. In true spirit, the book helps knit the world in Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, and with such rare literature contained in a beautiful books, indeed a must read for all. Thank you all. Namaste, Vanakkam, Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Nair. I'm thrilled to introduce our next speaker, who holds a special place in my heart. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kuni Krishnan, a distinguished media and television professional who retired as Additional Director General of Doordarshan. He is a prolific author, having published 14 books in both Malayalam and English. It is with great pleasure that I invite my father-in-law, Mr. Kuni Krishnan, to the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Honored Governor of Tamil Nadu, Mr. R.N.rava, our good old friend, Mrs. Lakshmi Ravi, Madhu Nair, James, Dr. Prabha Sridevan, Mr. Sri Kumar Varma, Ms. Sumita. I am really honored that I could be associated with the release of a book which is called Book of Books. It was quite accidental that I came across this book sometime last year, around the same time. Then I met, rather than that, Dr. James met me and my family, and then we struck a chord and also a chemistry. Then we visited his house in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, USA, along with my son, wife, and my daughter-in-law, who are settled in Chicago. We saw his library at home, and then also the library where he has kept the precious books. Since then, I was enamored with this book because it's just not a book, it's a book of books. Initially, when I was contacted about the book, I casually asked him, so it must be a book about the Bible, which is the book of books. Then when I saw his presentation in the conference in Canada, it was totally different. It is a string of books, and a string of books, a string of beads in the meandering stream of time. It is a book of pearls in the stream of time, because it contains scriptures, it contains spirituality, it contains scriptures. And these scriptures are important from the point of view that Indian scriptures came to be known to the Western world only during the 17th, 18th centuries, when great works of like Bhagavad Gita, Kalidasa's works, and so on, Vedas, Upanishads, they all got translated into English. then the world realized that India is just not a colony of the British, but also a world of great civilizations, cultural heritage, and traditions. In that way, I congratulate Dr. James Matthew that he found Thoreau and also Walden, Emerson, and a string of other authors who extolled Indian philosophy, Indian culture, and spread the Indian scriptures and spirituality to the Western world. And what amazed me much more than that is that Dr. James Matthew collects first editions of books. I remember a time when during my college days I studied in a college run by Catholic priests, CMI priests. We had a class on it is actually religion. They teach lessons from the Bible. It's called moral lesson. Then they were speaking about Bible, and I still remember a lecture when the first edition of the Bible, first printed edition of the Bible, was extolled for 1 hour. Since then, I have been, of course, not because of the lecture, I have been collecting books, buying books as much as I can, and then I realized the value of the first edition only when Dr. James Matthew showed me his collections, artifacts, holographs, and which were all compiled into this book. It's a remarkable book. I recommend it to every book lover in the country. I congratulate Sumita for bringing out an Indian edition, which is by far cheaper than the first UK edition. I'm sure the book will find patronage with every reader in the country, every university, every library, every college in the country, so that the culture of India, culture of the world, humanity, all that will get imbibed and etched in the minds of readers. Thank you. Once again, congratulations. I specifically thank Mr. Ravi for blessing us on this occasion. Thank you very much.
It is my honor to introduce Justice Prabha Sridevan, a distinguished former judge of the Madras High Court. During her tenure, she delivered landmark judgments on a wide range of crucial issues, including freedom of speech, child rights, gender equality, among others. Justice Prabha Sridevan is not only a legal luminary, but also a prolific writer and a public intellectual, contributing insightful columns to both English and Tamil newspapers. Please join me in welcoming Justice Prabha Sridevan to the podium.
மேடையில் அமர்ந்திருக்கும் ஆளுநருக்கும் இங்கு வந்திருக்கும் அனைத்து பெரியவர்களுக்கும் என் வணக்கம். I am going to continue in English thereafter. My greetings on Madras Day to all of you. This is a wonderful book. I am really deeply honored that Dr. Matthew should have and Mr. Kuni Krishnan should have asked me to be here on the days on this day. Normally, the writer of a book reveals herself or himself. In this book, the collector of the books, I could see kind of get an idea of what kind of a person Dr. Matthew is from the books he has collected. I will just read from some pages of his book to show what I gathered from the collection of books. The first, of course, will be a mention of Madras, because today is Madras Day. At page 259, there is a mention of 1922 Young India. This compilation volume of Young India, Mahatma Gandhi's magazine in English, was published by Tagore and Company, Madras, India. So I start with that. Then, appropriately, Dr. Matthew talks of his family. I think we are what and who went before us. I think that makes a lot of what we are. And I choose a particular passage which is very moving and appropriate. His daughter Shanti, when in junior high school, is asked to write an essay about a person whom she admired. She writes about Dr. Matthew's father. I've never met the person I admire the most. He passed away on March 3rd, 1987, 2 months and 14 days before I was born. That man is my father's father, my grandfather. So, Dr. Matthew gives us an idea of who his family, who were all, what great men they were, spirited men and women from whom he is born. Next, of course, there is a lot of Thoreau, and he says this is the writer's words, not from the book. There is no purer pond in America than Walden. Wade in and reflect, ye reader. Take a dip and be born again. I think you should take a dip into this book also. Next, I come to another quote of Thoreau's, where you realize that he has read Kalidasa. He writes, "The sulphur-like pollen of the pitch pine soon covered the pond and the stones and rotten wood along the shore, so that you could have collected a barrel full. This is the sulphur showers we hear of. Even in Kalidasa's drama of Shakuntala, we read of rills dyed yellow with the golden dust of the lotus." Dr. Matthew was not able to find the quote cited by Thoreau, but this is beautiful. And on the facing page, there is the letter by Mrs. Indira Gandhi written on 25th December 1968, which comments on the influence of Thoreau in India. Then Emerson. There is a beautiful poem about Emerson in his own handwriting. It is titled Brahma. I will just read the first verse. If the red slayer thinks he slays, or if the slain think he is slain, they know not well the subtle ways. I keep and pass and turn again. You can clearly see the influence of Bhagavad Gita. Then we come to Tagore. And we also come to the quote by a person who I don't think was born in India, but he definitely breathed his, born in Madras, but he definitely breathed his last in Madras, Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan. He writes the tribute to the centenary volume of Rabindranath Tagore. What the world needs today is universal charity. In Hungary, near the Balaton Lake, where he, that is Tagore, recouped from his illness, he planted a tree on 8th November 1926 and wrote in the guest book the following lines: "When I am no longer on this earth, my tree, let the ever-renewed leaves of thy spring murmur to the wayfarers, the poet did love while he lived." Then I come to an extraordinarily titled book, which to me shows the compassion of Dr. Matthew. This is the first edition of the book written by Givargis Mar Ostatios. Daridra Logathil Danavana Irkunnadu Pavam. In a world with poverty, it is a sin to be rich. I am deeply beholden, Dr. Matthew, for inviting me to be on the days today. Thank you very much. I think this is a book that deserves to be read, and thank you, Sumita, for this excellence.
Thank you. I take great pleasure in introducing Sri Kumar Varma, a renowned Indian author, playwright, newspaper columnist, and poet. He has captivated readers with his novels including Lament of Mohini, Maria's Room, and Kipling's Daughter. Sri Kumar Varma's talent extends to children's literature and theatre. Please join me in welcoming Sri Kumar Varma to the podium.
Your Excellency and respected friends on the dais and in the audience. This is a rare evening filled with the aroma of many rare books and one brilliant mind. When I went through this book a couple of years ago, there was so much I wanted to say. This evening, within the time I have, I will read out a few of those thoughts that I have written down. Imagine a classroom where teachers come and go. Each one rubs away what the previous teacher wrote and writes down their own thoughts and notes. There's nothing left at the end of the day, just a blank blackboard. A stranger who walks in is unable to know what went on in the classroom during the day. The high points of an intellectual, cultural, literary, artistic journey, all rubbed away or scattered in the minds and notebooks of many students. What we need is an idea of that process and a taste of that experience. And that is what James Matthew has done for us, for the world, for the youngsters of now and the future, collecting and displaying for us selected gems that highlight the core of that experience. A thrilling museum of ideas that you can carry around with you. But more important to me, when I first read the book, he sent it to me. We are great friends, but just a couple of years old. Our friendship is just a couple of years old, but we are great friends. And he sent me this book a couple of years ago. More important, I find, is the story of the patriarch his museum is named after, his father, Tamariveli Givargis Matai, T.G. Matai. It is always the personal and the local that reaches out into the bigger world. Because of the similarity of experiences, the basic nature of man, and the lessons we all can learn from one individual experience. In that way, the book is a collection of legendary treasures, is also a very rich telling of a personal story. And for that reason, we are here today not only to celebrate the wonderful idea of this book, but also to celebrate the heritage and the wisdom and the resourcefulness of this quiet and accomplished gentleman who is sitting with us today, who had the courage and determination to collect and present before us so many of the world's treasures, and all in the name of his father. Dr. Krishnan writes in an article, I think for the Hindu, that he must have spent a lot of money accumulating this museum, because most of these things that you see, those photographs you see, are not just photographs in the book. These are in his possession. He has brought the first edition of most of these books. Can you imagine 750 copies of Gitanjali, Tagore's book, was the first print order, and 250 were for sale. Our friend has got one of the copies in his museum. And this is an idea which was generated by his father and brought to him. He was inspired by his daughter. So it's like a current running through the family and reaching this point of time when this book is now available. Thank you, James, for being a friend to me and to so many eager readers of the book. Thank you so much.
the much-awaited release of the Book of Books by our Honorable Governor. The momentous occasion will be marked by the presentation of the book copies to Dr. P.M. Ravi. I'm honored to introduce the esteemed Governor of Tamil Nadu, R.N.rava. With a distinguished career in the Indian Police Service, he served in various capacities across Kerala and other regions. Additionally, he served as the Deputy National Security Advisor and as the Governor of Nagaland. It is with immense pride that I extend this invitation to the Honorable Governor, Sri R.N.rava, to deliver the chief address.
Dr. James Matthew, the author of the book, distinguished persons on the dais, distinguished invitees, friends from media, Vanakkam, Namaskaram. A few months back, my dear friend Krishnan, he gave me a call and I missed the call. Later when I was in a program, I came and looked at my phone, I found there was a missed call. It was after a considerable lapse of time, in the sense that we were very close, yet for some time we were not in touch. Maybe because I was here and there. So when I saw his missed call, I gave him a call back. It was such a delightful moment to hear his voice. We talked about our families, children, grandchildren. And then he told me that, look, I have a request. I want you to release a book. I was not sure whether I was worthy of it, because as head of the state, people put all sorts of caps on you, even though some of these may not fit you, and some very oddly. But the fact that when I asked him that, are you coming? He said, yes, I am coming with my wife Ragini. I promptly said yes. I thought even if I was not worthy, we would have a family get together. Later, I received a copy of the book. I leafed through it, and what an amazing work. What a collection. It's amazing. One has to read to get the flavor of it, the depth of it. But at the beginning of the chapter on Henry David Thoreau, there is a quote in the book from David Thoreau himself. It says, "It would be worthy of age to put together in print collected sacred works of several nations, Chinese, Hindus, Persian, Hebrews, and many others. And that would be the book of books, the book of mankind. I think Dr. James Matthew has fulfilled the dream of Thoreau by putting so many works of great mind together. And as one leaves through, every quote, every page is scintillating. It mesmerizes you. And at the end of the book, the last page has a beautiful, is it a painting or a photograph? I do not know, but it looks like it could be photograph, it could be painting as well. Waster is holding a pearl, and there is a quote, "Remember, ye Waster, pearls are not delivered without labor." Yes, we know how pearls are born. When a sand particle or some foreign element gets into the waster, into the muscle, it creates a lot of discomfort, and the waster, to defend itself, to protect itself from the pain, it secretes. And the secretion consolidates, solidifies, and that becomes the pearl. Is the product of very hard labor. And here, Dr. James, the Waster, has produced the pearl. It's a wonderful book. Collection of book is one part, but picking up the quotes, the paras from the book, placing it into the book. It is not just mere collection. An art collector collects, loves the art. A collector of books collects the book, fine. But it's not only that he just collected. He went through the book. He found certain paragraphs, certain quotings, and he reproduced that in the book. Imagine from so many books picking up paragraphs, apt paragraphs, thoughtful, pithy, pregnant paragraphs, putting them in the book. It's simply amazing. It shows again the kind of person the author is. Well, he is a cardiologist and renowned cardiologist, a doctor of hearts, and what you find in the book is more that relates to your heart. And today, we need such books. We wish we had more like it, more than ever before. Because today, we are so much overwhelmed by the various technological gadgets that people, very few people read books. And when I say books, I mean books on literature, on philosophy. There is a plethora of writing all over, but books on literature and philosophy, I am referring to. Because this being enslaved by gadgets, we are moving away from ourselves, even in our families. It's not a rare sight. First of all, it is a rare sight that the parents and children sit together ever for some light conversation. But even when they meet, the most painful sight is everyone is busy on one's own mobile. So close and yet so far. Virtually connecting with the far off, imaginary world, or maybe distant friends, but losing touch, the warmth of one who is your near and dear. This overwhelming influence of technology and technological gadgets is producing technicians, producing activists, not thinkers. We have age, electronic age, visual age. It's a visceral. It's the age of packaging and advertising. There are no time left for a stillness and reflection. In my childhood, as a student, high school student, I read a small book, should be called a booklet, by Bertrand Russell. The book's name is In Praise of Idleness. As a student, we were told we shouldn't be idle, must be very hardworking and all. And this book, the cover of it, was not very a pleasing thing for the teachers and all who had not read the book. In praise of idleness, the author Bertrand Russell says that he gave the praise, he eulogized, he was so happy about the advent of technology. He says that, look, human beings for all these years in their civilizational evolution were busy working out with their physical labor, the living. Now with coming of technological tools, new and new technology, humans would have relief, would have leisure time. And the leisure time would be used for thinking, for deliberations. At the time we all believed how right he was. But now today, I'm afraid I don't think many of us would agree with him, because we have time, but we remain awfully occupied. We don't know for what. Now this overwhelming presence of technological gadgets in our day-to-day life is impacting heavily on the evolution of human consciousness. It is shaping our thoughts, it is shaping our reactions, it is shaping our policies of today and tomorrow. And these are all, I shouldn't say all, but they are largely not adequately thought, adequately understood. Because, after all, the human beings, we know we have three facets to our personality. That is what defines a human being. The physical, the intellectual, and the spiritual. When I say spiritual, I don't mean going for a temple or mosque or church or rites or ritual. It is something that deals with your subtlest self, where you connect with the others, connect with the rest of creation. The three facets of the personality. The physical is gross, intellectual subtle, and the spiritual is the subtlest. The physical, the gross, makes a demand. And today it seems that intellectual is in the service of the physical. For the pleasure, for our comfort, we keep producing new and new technology, new and new gadgets. And the hunger is insatiable. And in the process, we are moving away from the finer self which truly defines a human being. The harmonious growth or a comprehensive or a wholesome growth of an individual, a human being, it needs to have that aspect of personality also. It must grow. And how does it grow? Literature, philosophy are very important. When you read, the passage plays on you. It evokes in you certain feelings, certain sentiments, which are not intellectual, which are not calculations, which are emotive. I'm reminded of the relation between the book and the reader, what Stendhal, the great French writer, said, that of the bow and the casing in a violin. The casing is the human soul, the reader's soul, and the bow is the book. It plays on the casing and it creates notes. All the notes are latent in us, they are sleeping in us. It is this that evokes, that makes it conscious, makes us conscious of those notes. And that is where the different situation that it creates and through which one goes, the reader goes, it makes you less judgmental and more accommodative. It moves from the moral certitude to moral ambiguity. You don't just condemn a person outrightly that, look, so-and-so is right, so-and-so is wrong. Because maybe in a situation where that person is, you could also be like that. But you are not aware of it. This growth of a person, the individuals, is possible only if you go through that literature, the various genres of it, through the philosophy. And that is what makes a person a wholesome, and which is the need of the hour. We are at an age where we need books like what Dr. James has produced, James Matthew has produced. I congratulate him, and I compliment him for his wonderful work, amazing work. And I would be definitely a strong proponent of it, that this book is worth keeping on not only in yourself, but also on the bedside. That when you go to the bed, take the book, turn a leaf, read it, think over it. It is so edifying, it can be so sublimating that one ends up a better human being. In the introduction, Adur Gopalakrishnan says this is a book, aperitivo for the beginner, that appetizer for the beginner, and digestivo, that is digestive for the sated. Very aptly said. But irrespective of whether one is a beginner or well-sated or well-read, this book deserves to be in the travel bag of every person who wishes to grow and wishes to be a better human being. Thank you, Dr. James Matthew. Thank you very much for this book. All the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Governor, for that. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you a remarkable individual who's not only made significant contributions to the field of medicine, but has also embarked on a literary journey that has captivated readers worldwide. Please join me in welcoming Dr. James Matthew, a distinguished cardiologist and the author of Book of Books.
Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu, R.N.rava, Dr. P.M. Nair, IPS, Honorable Justice Prabha Sridevan, pardon me, and the Chair, Mr. K. Krishnan, my friend and author, Thiru Sri Kumar Varma, Srimati Sumita Detta, Srimati Lesmi Nambiar, distinguished guests, my friends, my family, little children, ladies and gentlemen, Vanakkam, and a happy Chennai Dinam, Chennai Day. I am profoundly honored and deeply humbled by your attendance on this occasion and by the sentiments you have expressed with respect to Book of Books. On behalf of my co-author, Ken Bicknell, and myself, I wholeheartedly thank you all. This book, for the most part at least, was written at night. Thank you for helping it to see the day of the light. The light of the day. And for throwing some bright light on it, particularly from my countrymen in India. Most men who toil would one day like to take the fruit of their labor to the market. Writers in general are no exception in this respect, but the market to which the writers take their product to is different, and so is the scale by which their reward is measured. Thank you for helping to make Book of Books matter in the market for which it is intended, the minds of the reading public. My respects are due foremost to those honest men and women who left behind a great legacy of their recorded noble thoughts for generations and nations to inherit. My task in writing the book was merely to gather some pearls from the stream of time, a stream that meanders through centuries and stretches across continents, to weave a necklace of pearls, if you will, and present it to the world. Thank you for kindly looking at it and warmly receiving it. And now my task that respected chair has assigned me to, namely to tell the story behind the Book of Books, the making of Book of Books. Growing up in India, I have heard the names of the 19th century intellectuals of America, Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Abraham Lincoln. Even as I was familiar with the household names in India of the 20th century, Mahatma Gandhi, Rabindranath Tagore, but it was not until about 1984 when I first laid my eyes on a copy of Henry David Thoreau's single most famous book, Walden. Thoreau introduced me to a few other great American figures, especially the Transcendentalists. Reading the writings of the Transcendentalists impressed upon me how profoundly they were influenced by ancient Indian literature and scriptures. Then there was a period in the late 19th and the early 20th centuries when mutual exchange of ideas and ideals occurred more generously and freely between the East and the West by the travels and labors of intellectuals from the East and the West and in between. This led to better understanding and mutual respect among peoples and nations. While the theme of the East-West exchange of literature and philosophy evolved, so did my interest in seeing my favorite authors' writings in their original formats. So I became an angler at that point, and I started fishing for rare books, manuscripts, association copies, and historical artifacts, both from the East and the West. Looking back, the beginning of my collecting can be traced to a copy of the Holy Bible that my little daughter Shanti inscribed and presented to me, perhaps on a birthday, I don't remember for sure. She wrote in her cursive letters in green ink, simply, from Shanti to James Matthew. And this was well over 25 years ago. Little did I foresee that this small gift from the small hands of my daughter would be the seed of a collection of rare books, manuscripts, and historical artifacts which will one day be presented to the world in the form of a book. As my collection grew, I realized that the pearls I caught were not without their links. the invisible strands that bind all inquisitive men and elevate mankind. I viewed it as a sort of museum, and I decided to name it after my father, T.G. Mathai. As the scope of the museum grew around this theme of East-West exchange of philosophy and literature, so did my desire to share it with the world. Book of Books is my attempt at that. I would like to highlight a few names without which perhaps this book in general, and particularly the India edition, and certainly not this grand ceremony of release in Chennai, would have happened. Right from the beginning of the concept and the first draft, my good friend Sri Adur Gopalakrishnan was my supporter and my encourager. So I humbly remember his name here. This particular India edition and this grant release by none other than Honorable Governor of the state of Tamil Nadu would not have happened without the support and encouragement of a gentleman whose name I am proud to pronounce. It is Sri K. Krishnan. Not only him, but many members of his family. In short of time, I'm not going to mention all of them, but the whole family supported me, and they put this whole thing together. I showed up, rather on the verge of the meeting when it began. I'm also thankful to my UK publisher, Libri Publishing, for bringing out a UK edition, as well as Sumita Datta of Adi Sakrit for bringing out this beautiful India edition to make it more affordable and accessible to book lovers and readers in India. The highlights of this collection and the contents of this books are the intellectuals of the 19th century America, the writings of ancient India which influenced them, the later luminaries who rekindled East-West conversation, and modern India's greatest gifts to the world. So, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, my countrymen, those of you who gather these rare, precious gems, consider not them your property, but rather consider yourself as temporary custodians of wares which are worth more than their price, and find